Hello to all my subscribers. Hope you're all doing well, guys, staying safe, staying away from the coronavirus. The purpose of this update today is to chat about a few things that are hot off the press, some things that may not have been mentioned in the mainstream media, also to put a little bit of a spin on it, or to do a little bit of crystal ball gazing to say, what is this all about? Is this the big pandemic that a lot of us thought might be coming? Is this still just a kind of a trial run, a dry run? What is it all about? If you're watching my channel for the very first time, we generally talk about astrology. I do a lot of political predictions based on astrology. Part of the reason why I'm talking about this outbreak is it links to a prediction I made for China and to a comparison I drew for the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn for an outbreak of bubonic plague the last time that happened in Moscow and St. Petersburg. So that's kind of the theme, and if you haven't listened to me before, there is a kind of populist slant to what I talk about, and it's definitely a woke-free zone and also a mumbo-jumbo-free zone. I try not to do the whole spiritual waffly side of astrology. So maybe we should have a look at some significant numbers. The morning update for South Korea has just come out, and it's very high. It's 334 cases, which is the highest they've ever had for a morning or an evening update, because they update twice a day. That really is a massive number, and it just shows that the community spread in South Korea is, I wouldn't say it's out of control, but it's significant. President Trump did his press conference. While he was doing it, the CDC confirmed the first case in Northern California that is not linked to a person who's either been to one of the hotspots like Iran or China or South Korea, and this person had had no contact with anyone from those regions. So it remains to be seen where this person contracted coronavirus, and it just shows you that there is a lot of community spread going on in America. Now, thus far, America, the CDC, they tested only 19 people in 2 days, and overall they've only tested 445 people in the whole of the states. Whereas the UK say they have tested over 6,000 people, and Italy are currently testing thousands of people, as is South Korea. So one wonders why America are so short of these testing kits, and whether it's just a strategy not to test people and therefore to keep it under control, at least in terms of what gets out in the media. But this new case shows that it has spread much further than just people who have visited those regions or had direct contact with people from these regions. Canada's numbers, I'm going to be looking at the numbers from all the countries, but Canada's number has stayed fairly steady, and I believe it's because Canada also only tests if there's an obvious or direct link to one of the affected countries. So let's have a look at the numbers. I'm not going to do any numbers from China right now. The numbers from China, the whole of China, not including Hubei, were only 5. Last night. Current numbers have not yet come out. This is we're currently at 1:15 in the morning on the 27th of the 2nd. The Chinese numbers haven't come out, but yesterday there were only 5 new cases in the whole of China, not including Hubei. In Hubei and Wuhan, numbers were also dramatically down. I think they were about under 300. So basically, the morning total today for South Korea is probably going to be more than the entire of China, with 1.3 billion people reports today. Does that mean China have got it under control? I doubt it, but they've certainly got their numbers under control. So, Diamond Princess, 705. There were some extra people from that who became ill. 4 deaths linked to the Diamond Princess. South Korea, numbers 1,595 people now, 12 dead. Italy has soared up to 453 people, 12 deaths. Japan is at 172 people with 3 deaths. Iran had no cases at all until about 4 days ago. They started reporting 2 cases, 2 deaths, and it's soared now to 139 cases with 19 deaths. Although Iran has also exported people, because someone showed up in Canada, in Lebanon, Kuwait, Iraq, Afghanistan. People were showing up all over the Middle East who'd contracted it in Iran. So, you know, they've got 139 cases, but strangely, an enormous amount of the other cases are linked to Iran, which shows the outbreak there is probably very deep indeed, unfortunately. Singapore have increased to 93, no deaths. Hong Kong up to 89, 2 deaths. United States are showing at 60, quite a few of those are from the Diamond Princess. Thailand now up to 40, Taiwan 32, 1 death. Malaysia is fairly steady at 22, not much happening there. Australia 23. Germany has rocketed from 16 up to 27 in the last 2 days. Vietnam, not much going on at 16, but I don't know whether we should believe that number because it's very close links to China. Could well have more. Dubai and UK on 13, France at 18, Canada 12, Macau strangely is staying at 10. They reopened all the casinos in Macau about 5 to 7 days ago because they believed it was under control, so I'm not quite sure. Bahrain has gone from nothing to 33 in about 3 days. Same with Kuwait, which is at 26. Iraq 5. Philippines and India just staying there on 3. Russia 2, but then Russia have closed their borders and stopped all work visas, etc. from China. Nepal 1, Cambodia 1, Sri Lanka 1, Finland and Sweden 2, Belgium and Egypt 1, Israel and Lebanon both 2, but I'll be coming back to Israel. Afghanistan's got 1, Austria 2, Croatia's gone up to 3, Switzerland, Algeria, Brazil, Greece all 1. Pakistan now 2, although I've been waiting for Pakistan to start reporting because they have very strong links to China. Seems likely that they could be a place where a spate could break out. New countries showing up: Northern Macedonia, Georgia, Norway and Romania, all with 1. So just in the past couple of hours, we've had the 334 new cases in South Korea, the unexplained one in California, 8 new cases in Germany, 3 in the Baden-Württemberg area, 4 in Rhine-Westphalia, others in other areas, 54 new cases in Italy as a couple of hours ago, and of course Romania had their first case and a couple more in Spain. So I believe that an air hostess from Korean Airlines has contracted it, and she was on the route to Israel. Why that's interesting is a group of South Korean pilgrims, not linked to the church in Daegu, the kind of cultish church, linked to a Catholic church, had done a pilgrimage in Israel, and 31 out of the 39 South Koreans on that pilgrimage have contracted coronavirus. They could be linked to the air steward on South Korean Airways. But it's quite interesting because Israel are currently only showing 2 cases, but if people with such a high rate of infection, i.e. this Catholic group that did a pilgrimage in Israel, have it, seems likely we could soon see the numbers going up in Israel quite dramatically. I'm kind of interested in the whole religious element going on, which, I mean, it might not mean anything. It probably doesn't mean anything. But it's coincidental that there was an outbreak at a church in Singapore. There's been the massive outbreak at the church in Daegu in South Korea, where I think nearly half their cases are connected to that church. Then there's the Catholic pilgrims from South Korea who have it. Then we have Iran, where the outbreak is in the city of Qom, which is a place where a lot of pilgrims come from all over the Middle East. So again, there's this religious thing, because so many pilgrims from Qom contracted it there and then kind of went home to all the other countries in the Middle East and have shown up in their numbers there. So I'm just wondering now about the Hajj. Could that go ahead? And even the Olympics are being called into question. So I think a lot of us have said, you know, is this hype? Is this a drill? Is it the media blowing it out of proportion? I think we're going to know if the Olympics get cancelled. Because other than when the Ryder Cup was cancelled just after 9/11, I can't think of any time since sort of World War II when a major sporting event has been cancelled. So I don't think, if we want to look at it conspiratorially, I know people like that angle, I don't think the elites would engineer a virus if it interrupted something as important as the Olympics. Although, of course, so many people are speculating that it's all going to go away in summer because flu's really a winter phenomenon and it'll probably come back next winter, by which time, of course, they'll have the vaccine ready. So maybe it'll magically go away, the whole summer sporting fixtures will go ahead brilliantly and it won't interrupt it at all. I mean, that could be happening. I'm wondering too, there's a lot of problem reaction solution going on. I think the more they create panic, the more people are clamorous to be led to safety by their governments and to have governments introduce vaccines. So it's a wonderful payday for the pharmaceuticals. So while we see the stock markets hitting, having big slumps every day, although they recovered a little bit on the Dow today, gold prices reached a 7-year high. I imagine Bitcoin will be improving as well as people look for other ways to put their money. But I should imagine the pharmaceutical companies are doing brilliantly. You know, do you remember when they introduced Tamiflu, which purportedly did absolutely nothing according to numerous people who took it, and even the experts afterwards said it was an absolute, it wasn't very effective. But it was certainly the government's purchased massive stocks of it. So maybe, who knows, maybe they're going to try and recycle the Tamiflu and start giving it to people. I've also heard them talking about certain AIDS drugs and Ebola drugs being used to counteract that. Sounds to me kind of toxic to be doing that. It just doesn't sit right with me. Maybe medically these things can cross over. You know, one antiviral is very much similar to another, possibly. It just seems to me that a lot of the time they try and find other uses for drugs that are not being used in maybe cancer or Ebola treatment in order to get them off the shelves. I mean, wasn't AZT, it was a very, very toxic cancer drug, and then they started using it on AIDS patients in the 80s. So they kind of try and recycle these drugs. So it's a bit worrying when they're going to try and use Ebola drugs to counteract that. I think they should be telling people, don't become run down. Eat nutritious food. Obviously, that's not going to help people in impoverished areas. But I think beyond saying, wash your hands, they should be encouraging people to take supplements, to eat well, to not become run down, to get rest, not to have too much alcohol. I mean, these seem to be sensible precautions as well, rather than just getting people to rely on a vaccine or drugs. Question, of course, is, are we trusting China for their numbers? No, because they're desperate to get people at work. Otherwise, their economy is really going to tank. Quite interesting that Kuwait has stopped flights to numerous countries, including Thailand. So Thailand's numbers have stayed steady. There's not really a big outbreak in Thailand, but Kuwait have put them in their list of countries, including South Korea, China, Hong Kong, not saying that's a separate country, but a region, Singapore, etc. They've also put Thailand on the list, along with Cambodia and Vietnam. So maybe Kuwait know that the outbreak there is a lot more serious than their numbers suggest. Kuwait also stopped flights to Dubai and Sharjah for some reason. So I think that's because Dubai and Sharjah are massive hubs for the region. So if anything's coming through, it could be there. Watching the Trump press conference, there was a woman who came on and she was talking that this is a good test of preparedness. So that definitely stuck out in my mind because I thought, oh, right. So is this what it is? It's a test of preparedness because, as you know, all along I was saying, is this a drill? So she might have let something slip, or maybe she doesn't really have a clue, but she said something that was helpful anyway. So I wonder, to go back to that theory, if this is the real thing or a test of preparedness. But, you know, whichever way it is, I think I'll definitely be taking precautions because, I mean, it's a very real thing and who wants to get ill? So that's basically the update for tonight. As I say, the time is 1:25 a.m. early in the morning on the 27th of the 2nd. We're going to see how this pans out, but certainly numbers coming out of South Korea are not encouraging, and we have this new case in America of community spread not linked to any kind of obvious source. So it just shows that this thing can be lurking anywhere. So please, folks, just stay out of crowded areas if you can. Don't get run down. Eat well. Take your colloidal silver if you can. And keep safe. Stay well, and I hope you enjoyed this little update.